Less than a week has passed after the visit of Vladimir Putin. Hungarian PM Viktor Orbán is welcoming another controversial figure of world politics on Thursday, Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, the president of Turkey. The two leaders' close relationship goes back to 2013, when Orbán was looking for trade partners in the East. He and Erdoğan found an immediate understanding. The alliance has strengthened since the migration crisis and the deal Erdoğan struck with the European Union to hold back refugees coming from Syria. Hungarian diplomacy, alone in the EU, has since provided support to Erdoğan in all his controversial moves. Orbán hailed the change of the constitution, attended Erdoğan's inauguration as a president and slowed down the EU's condemnation of the Turkish offensive in Syria. What Hungary gets in return is not quite evident. While trade between the two countries is growing, it is still far from the goal set in 2013. Not all Hungarians are happy with Orbán's friendship with Erdoğan. Demonstrations are planned in response to what the organizers call the invitation of a war criminal to Hungary. During Erdoğan's last visit in Budapest, only the demonstrations supporting the Turkish president was permitted by the Hungarian authorities. Gábor Tanács, Euronews, Budapest.
Well, for more, we're joined by Marta Padavi, the co-chair of the Hungarian Helsinki Committee Human Rights Group. Morning to you. Thank you for your time. Look, President Erdoğan is skipping out a visit via Brussels to head to Budapest straight away instead. How should we interpret that?
Good morning. Mr. Orbán and President Erdogan have nurtured a strong bond. They both seem to have a relentless appetite for unchecked power. And this visit now is, I think, a further symbol of that strong bond. It's very important to see how the Hungarian government and the Prime Minister has basically been such a staunch supporter of somebody who's had built up a track record of human rights violations, both within Turkey and in its foreign policy. I'm thinking of the Syria offensive now. And Mr. Orbán has made it very clear years ago already, and he repeats this every time, that he and the Hungarian government are fully backing Mr. Erdoğan in its policies. They never criticize, never call him out on its human rights record. And they fail to also support joint EU action that would call attention to Turkey's blatant human rights violations.
Well, talking about policy, do you think it's likely that migration is going to be discussed?
Certainly, the Hungarian government has emphasized that they see the Turkish offensive into Syria as something that would help Europe protect this area against the incoming potential new refugee flows. It's also important to highlight how the Hungarian government never really fails to take any action to protect refugees, but it always succeeds and makes sure that it would speak about how refugees' rights could be violated. When talking about return to Syria, of the Syrian refugees who are in Turkey now, one wonders whether there is any voluntary, safe and dignified return opportunities. The government, the Hungarian, seems to neglect this aspect altogether, and it's fully supportive of the Turkish offensive.
You're talking about this relationship. It's not an obvious friendship, these two countries. So what do you think is in it for both parties?
Yes, it's a very puzzling, right? How an EU member state can always seem to be going against the EU's grain and to be supportive of dictators and human rights violators. This is what Hungary seems to be doing. It even tried to block a month ago the EU joint statement that would have called on Turkey not to invade Syria. I think the reason behind this is something that is both political and probably also trade and economic policy is behind this. And we can see how Mr. Orbán makes promises that are very easy to make, particularly when it comes to enlargement, for example. Hungary is looking to get the enlargement portfolio in the European Commission. It's very concerning how the Hungarian Prime Minister has almost already promised Mr. Erdoğan that if the Hungarian commissioner will be responsible for enlargement, then Turkish membership talks could go on. These are used as political leverage, probably for economic gains. And I think they show a clear disregard for genuine human rights and democracy issues that we are very concerned about in Hungary also, and also in Turkey.